Let's bring our panel in. Jonah Goldberg is the senior editor at the National Review, Mara Liasson, national political correspondent from National Public Radio, and Molly Hemingway, senior editor at The Federalist. How important do you think this finding is, Jonah?
I don't think it's that important. I think that we kind of knew that if there was real evidence of collusion, we would have heard about it by now. There's been so much journalistic exploration of this. There have been so many committees. Something would have leaked. I think in many ways that this is just simply going to be factored into the noise on both sides. The Democrats, are already coming out saying that it was called off early. I'm sure Donald Trump is going to say that this is proof that there was no collusion.
I'm surprised it's taken this long.
That's right.
Yeah, I know. Well, maybe he has. We just haven't seen the tweet. And so I think that it's just, I think the whole ball game depends on what the Mueller investigation finds one way or the other. And I'll still be surprised if they find collusion.
I asked Conaway this question. Is there any reason to expect that Mueller could find something different than the committee found?
Well, he might, but I think there are some important things in here. There are things that both parties could applaud. Number one, there was interference. Number two, we're not doing enough to protect ourselves from the next round of it, and election systems should be hardened against it. And this is a pattern of Russian attacks that have occurred. Now that is something that's widely held, and it's a good place to start.
Well, and the House
Collusion aside.
The House Intelligence Committee has actually been focused on Russia longer than most people. They were worried about Russia long before it became something in the headlines. So when this committee comes out with something about Russia, you should take it seriously. And it is interesting that they're talking about recommendations for what to do for elections. I mean, we have an election coming up this week. We've had elections recently. People need guidance on how to make sure that their election systems are properly taken care of. It's also worth, though, taking a step back and thinking about the larger narratives that we've seen here. We have been subjected to over a year of a Russia collusion theory that Trump was a traitor who was colluding with Russia. We have no evidence from this committee, and they have been looking at it quite a lot. And then we also have this issue of the criminal leaks that we've seen from Obama officials and other highly placed intelligence officials. And they give some indication that we'll get a little bit of information on that. Now, they're not in the best position to prosecute the criminal leaks that we have seen, that we know exist because we read about them in the paper. But that's something that's going to need to continue to take place, even as states and other groups start working on their electoral systems.
By the way, no tweet from Donald Trump on this yet. The president hasn't yet weighed in. There were obviously complaints from Democrats, Jonah, that this got wrapped up too quickly. You will remember a little less than a year ago, there was the controversy over Devin Nunes, who was the chairman, who had an ethics complaint filed against him. He stepped aside to let Conaway take over. The way that Conaway
is handled,
cleared on that ethics, and he was cleared on the ethics investigation. The way that Conaway has comported himself, does it leave him less open to criticism than he possibly might have been?
It might. We are in such a hyper-partisan moment that there's going to be criticism no matter what on all sides. And look, I agree with Molly that this should be taken seriously. But part of the problem here, with the exception where it says that they broke with the intelligence community's assessment about the Russians wanting to have a preference for Trump, which I think the Russians...
They just thought they were generally trying to sow chaos.
I think they were until they thought Trump could actually win, and then they leaned that way. I don't think it was a big difference, because when you actually look at what the tweets and social media were, they were more pathetic than overpowering. But almost all of this is the general Washington consensus at this point, right?
That's actually not true. We are still in the midst of this complete Russia hysteria. It is true that, like, Saturday Night Live is making fun of the idea that there's a big treasonous collusion, but we still have a special prosecutor dealing with all this, even though they've moved on.
How was any of that not true about this? Well, all I'm saying is that we know, everybody except the President of the United States has admitted and says that that Russia interfered and it messed with our elections, right?
But what is also being said is that Trump is a traitor who was
but that's not part of the consensus. That's not part of the Washington consensus. That's not even remotely part of the Washington consensus.
I think that people should be on record. If they don't think that's true, they should say that that's not true, because that's actually what a lot of people have been hearing for over a year.
That's fine, but that has nothing. That is no way a rebuttal of anything I said.
There's a bigger national security issue that, if you listen to the president, it's not important, and it didn't happen. This says Russia intervened, they tried to sow discord, they're going to be at it again. That's pretty important.
But the reason why President Trump is talking about that is because people have used this story for partisan political ends.
I don't know if that's the only reason he's talking about it.
Well, I think that what most people see when they see the media coverage of this is that people have tried to use this to delegitimize the president, and that this has been part of a pattern of behavior by intelligence officials and people in the media to create a lot of angst over this story precisely to delegitimize him.
My point is that this fits the consensus of his entire cabinet, of this entire national security establishment.
Well, Donald Trump has also said that there was that,
I'm going to call the buzzer in this one because we do want to get on to the school violence policy, that the school safety policy that the White House came out with yesterday. Everything that he's been talking about except raising the age for buying a long gun. The president tweeting on 18 to 21 age limits, watching court cases and ruling before acting. States are making this decision. Things are moving rapidly on this, but not much political support, to put it mildly. Molly, is he backing down in the face of enormous opposition from the NRA?
Well, yes, and that's good. I mean, when he was speaking last week, he was saying that due process didn't matter for taking away people's guns. He was talking about age limits for young people for buying rifles. Those are not popular ideas, and those are things that he would get a lot of pushback
But these
for.
are
So
things
it's good
that were
he's stepping
adopted
back
in the
from
state
that.
of Florida.
Yeah, in the state of Florida, which is a pretty pro-gun state, I think that when you look at polls about the age limit, 87%, 72%. Rasmussen, which was the lowest poll I could find, had 67% supporting raising the age limit. This is the same age limit for handguns. So I think there is lots of public support. The president's right. There's not a lot of political support among Republicans in Congress. That's true.
Right. Does it look like a cave, Jonah? Because the NRA came out and very loudly was against this, advertisements.
It depends on your level of hostility here, right? I mean, I don't think he necessarily caved, because he says things in these meetings that he then walks back all of the time. But the actual things that they're proposing, I think they all make sense. They're good. I mean, I think some of them, the Nix fix thing is, they're basically saying, now we really mean it, that government officials are supposed to uphold the law.
They're going to give people incentives to follow the law.
Yeah,
that's
it's pathetic, but might as well.
Yeah, they're pathetic. And look, this is better than nothing, and every Democrat will say the same thing.
Isn't it ironic?